Flashback is the newest and best cinematic mod for modern Minecraft. Its endless capabilities and options make it far better than its predecessor, Replay Mod. And today I'm going to teach you all about the mod and the best ways to use it for your Minecraft videos. In the description below, I have left a link to download the mod and also a link to the Discord server in case you have any issues. Here I am on my SMP world. I'm just here so that I can whip up a quick something so that I can show you how to use the mod. First of all, if you just press escape, you will get your start recording button right there. Pretty self-explanatory. You can just press the button and it will start your recording. It even has a little pop-up on the top right. I recommend waiting about 5 seconds before you start building and after you stop building to start and end the recording. That way you have a little bit of leeway for the start and end if you want to have some nice transitions or something. When you finish your replay, you can name it here pretty easily. And then you can save it or delete it. While you're recording, you can also pause your recording if you need to go for a second. I use this quite often, and then you can unpause it, or you can cancel the recording and it will be deleted. So make sure you press finish if you want the recording and cancel if you don't. After you have made your recordings, you will find them in this little menu here with the camera, and here is where all of your recordings will show up. Right now I only have the one that we just made. If you export your recordings for whatever reason or want to load anyone's replays, you can also do that with that button there. You can also access all of your flashback settings and mess with these right there. But I'm just going to open up our recording here. When you open the recording, you're going to be inside of yourself. If you just press the space bar and WASD, you can move around your camera as you would like. You can also use the scroll wheel to increase or decrease your flying speed. This is really nice for getting some precise shots. You can also turn on shaders, and if you have shaders on and you export the recording, it will export with the shaders, which is really awesome. I love having shaders on whenever I do any recordings because it just makes it so much more cinematic. But I'm going to turn off my shaders for now so that we can go through some of the settings here, which is the first thing that you should always do when you open up your recording. First of all, you can change any of the GUI options that might have happened while you were recording. I usually keep all of these off, but you might want those. You can also just turn off all of the blocks, all of the entities, all of the players, all of the particles. You can turn off the sky and just make it a green screen, change the color right there. But I always make sure to turn off my name tags because I don't want those in my cinematic shots. But here we come to some of my favorite options. You can override the fog, make it however you would like it. You can also override the fog color, make it whatever color you want it to be. Override the FOV, which is super important. I always keep my FOV around 90 when I'm playing, but always around like 40 or 50 when I'm making a cinematic shot. Another one of my favorite settings is the override time. You can change the time to whatever you want it to be. You can make it nighttime, you can make it sunset, you can make it sunrise, and it will stay that way for the entire recording, which is super awesome. The only thing I wish they had was an override of weather so that you didn't have rain and stuff when you didn't want it in your recordings, but you just take what you can get. You can also turn on night vision, you can turn on a camera shake, and you can turn on a camera roll. These two are a little bit more complicated options that I don't want to go through in this video for sake of time. And then here we come to some of the most important options for getting the best shots. Rule of thirds guide and the center guide. You can also use them together, and this way you can see exactly where the camera will split up, and on these corners here is the best place to have your points of interest because that's where the human eye likes to navigate to. So when you're getting your camera angles, it's super helpful to use these guides to make sure you get a good angle. The camera path will make more sense once we get some camera angles in here. You can just hide it with that button there. You can also change the aspect ratio of the entire recording. You can make it underlay underneath these bars here. You can make it custom if you want, but I always just like to keep it as it is. You also have a couple more tabs up at the top here, movement and player list. The movement tab I've never had to use before. It is also more of a complicated option that I don't think we have time for in this video. The player list, however, is super easy. You can teleport to all of the players that are nearby. Right now, it is just me. Teleport to myself, or I can even hide myself. Finally, up at the top, if you press F1, you can hide all of the little options and you can get some nice recordings just using your camera if you'd like. You also have the player list and movement tabs. You can turn them off or on, or you can move them wherever you'd like on the screen. I think it's best just to keep them up here. You also have a preference tab, so you can change the default export file name and the default interpolation. I just kept these as they were. I think smooth is the best interpolation, but if you use one of these more often, then go ahead and give that a change. And finally, you can press File to export your completed video, export a screenshot, or open a different replay, or exit this one. And then once you get all of your settings the way you like it, you're gonna wanna move your attention down to the timeline here. You can zoom in at any point in the timeline using your scroll wheel, and you can also set in and out points for where you want to render your video using the I and O keys on your keyboard so that you're not rendering more than you need to. If you press the play button, it will start your replay. You can press the fast forward button to make it go faster, or you can press the backwards button to slow it down. You can skip to the very beginning or end of your timeline using these buttons here. The next thing you want to do is add an element, and you're going to want to do a camera. Using the plus button will add a keyframe on your timeline for whatever position you're looking at the moment. So if I have 2 keyframes, it will go from one all the way to the other. And you can remove all of your keyframes using the minus sign. You can also disable the entire track, which will just make it so none of your keyframes will affect the replay. If you right click any of your keyframes, you can change the position, the rotation, your interpolation. There's a lot of different options there, and then the in-game tick that the keyframe is located on. You can also remove or apply your settings to the keyframe. I'm just gonna remove that keyframe there, and we're gonna go to where I just finished my build here. And then we're gonna go right above it so we get a good shot of the entire thing as it gets completed. We're gonna use our scroll wheel to make our flying speed lower so that we can get ourselves positioned easier. We're gonna make sure we're getting in the center of the build by using the center guide. That looks about right there. So we're gonna add a camera keyframe right there at the end. And I also want to go to the beginning of where we start building the word and add another keyframe there so that we're still for the entire build. And then before we start building, I want to have a little bit of a cinematic opening. So we're going to turn on our rule of thirds instead of the center. We're going to show off the nice volcano here, maybe a little bit lower than this. Yeah, just like that. Okay, we're going to turn that off. We're going to add a keyframe there, and then we're going to add another keyframe here so that we're still on the volcano for just a little bit before we start our transition. So it's going to show off the volcano, have a little bit there, then it's going to zoom out and show myself building my subscribe. If you lose track of any of your keyframes, you can also double click and it will teleport you to that keyframe. You can scrub forward through the timeline by moving your slider forward, but you cannot scrub backwards. Instead, you have to move your slider back, wait for it to load, and then you can scrub through forwards again. If we look at it from here, we can see our camera starts down there and then it goes up there. We can hide that with this little check mark there. The next thing I want to do is make it zoom in as I build my subscribe word there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an FOV keyframe. We're going to add one at the beginning as it is right now, and then we're going to add one at the end just like that, and we're going to zoom it in just a little bit. That way when I'm building the subscribe, it's going to slowly zoom in until the very end. I actually don't recommend using the FOV element to do zoom ins and outs, and instead I recommend doing that in post and using the FOV element for things more like this. The next thing I want to do is I don't want to have to use my fast forward every time I watch it. I want it to be very fast as I build the word because nobody wants to watch that in the slow speed. So we're going to make it a time lapse using the time lapse element here. We want our time lapse to start right as I start building, so we're going to add a keyframe at the beginning, and then we're going to add another keyframe at the end where I want my time lapse to end, just like so. And then now you input the time that you want your time lapse to take. And I think about 2 seconds works for this. So now all of the information between this keyframe and this keyframe will only take 2 seconds instead of like 55 seconds or whatever. So now once it goes there, the time will speed up, and there you go. Build my subscribe super fast. If I disable my time lapse, there is another way to increase the speed using the speed element. The way the speed element works is it changes the speed of everything as opposed to just speeding up what's in between the two keyframes like timelapse does. Something you need to be careful about with the speed keyframe is make sure the speed is at 1.0 where you want it to be at regular speed. So I want it to be at regular speed, until we start the time-lapse part where I want it to change to 10 times speed, and then I want to go back at 1 times speed at the end. But if you keep these keyframes as they are, it's going to start to speed up to 10, just like that, and then it's going to start to slow down to 1. But we want it to be more of a hard, fast speed change, so we're going to change these first two to holds, and that way it will hold it at 1 times speed and then change to 10 times speed in an instant. The other elements you have access to are camera shake and camera orbit, which I'm not going to go over in this video because of time's sake. And then you also have the time of day element, which is super cool to use. If you want to start the video at nighttime and have it quickly switch to daytime, you can add element like that, and then you can change this time to 20,000 and then have it go to the time that you want the rest of the time lapse to be. That way you can see the sunrise, and then it will start your time lapse just like this. But now it is time to render the video. So we're going to go up to File, Export Video. It's going to show us all of our options that you might want to go through and change some of them. I think all of it looks fine. You might want to have your audio in there of the blocks building. And then if you have more that you want to render and you want to just batch render all of them, you can add it to your queue. You can name what you want your finished thing to be, or you can just do start export and export it as it is. It takes some time to render sometimes depending how long your video is. But yeah, this mod works really well. There are some issues with it that I would like to see fixed in the future. For one, if your game crashes while you're recording a video, then your video is just gone into the abyss, nowhere to be found. With Replay Mod, it keeps backups, so hopefully at some point we'll be able to get backups of our flashback recordings as well. Now this was a very quick tutorial. It is a very choppy video. I understand that, and if I spent some more time on it, I could make it a lot better. But this is just to show you the basics, how everything works. If you have any questions about something that I did, I can answer them in the comments. If not, I would go to the Discord server that I have linked in the description. But this was my first time creating a mod tutorial, so hopefully I did good enough for you all to understand. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next one. Later!